Okay. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
We are live.
We are live. We are live. Yes. So, yep. So, as people come on, if they're going to come on, this is Mike again, my husband, father of my kids. And we were together a month ago talking about, we were talking about what it's like to be married to somebody who's chronically ill and fatigued. And so I got such great feedback from that, Mike. I don't even know if I
Oh,
ever really,
good.
yeah, I guess I didn't tell you. But
No,
people sent me a lot of messages. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable. I appreciated what Mike said, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's just like the tip of the iceberg and what we've gone through. So I thought,
yeah.
the
If they appreciate vulnerability, boy, are they in for a treat today.
okay, well, there you go. Yeah. So, there's multiple things that we have gone through, great loss, which maybe we'll talk about on another time. But I asked Mike today to talk to me about the topic of forgiveness, because what has us be able to be here and have this conversation now at the level that we're able to have it is the ability to forgive ourselves and what we brought to the picture, each other, and what the other person brought to the picture. And to get you caught up, we are not together anymore. So we're not, I call Mike my husband because he is, like, in my spirit, he is, but we're not together anymore. So that's kind of where it's at. But I thought the other part is sharing the journey is what makes a difference, I think. And I don't know if you agree, but I think that one of the reasons that we're here is to share our experiences, not to make it look like everything's perfect and we all have this great life and this amazing things happen, but actually to share the heartache and to share the pain and to share the growth. And when we share that, we become more real for ourselves, more authentic, and then we make a difference for others. So that's my intention, Mike. I don't know what yours is, other than you just said yes when I asked
Yes,
you.
no, I agree with what you said wholeheartedly. And like I said in our um, prior, I don't know if you call this a podcast, but our prior live, what I'm willing to do is share my heart, share what's going on and what went on, if that can provide something for someone else or another couple. So my heart is open. I'm willing to share whatever it is you'd like for me to share around forgiveness or anything, because I believe that in doing so can make a difference for your friends that are watching. Even if it's just one, I think it's worth doing.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Well, so when I said, Mike, let's do a conversation about forgiveness, what came to mind for you?
Well, so first I had to think, well, you know, what is forgiveness? Because for me, I think uh, language is everything, and forgiveness to one person doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to another. So first, I want to give the distinction that I come to forgiveness with. So I'm going to start with what I think forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not saying I was offended and it's okay. That's not forgiveness. It's all right. It's um, you did it, but so what? That's not forgiveness. The other thing forgiveness is not is for the other person wholly and solely. It's not for the other one, or I'm going to even say the other personality, because I'm going to be wild and crazy enough to say sometimes you have to forgive yourself, and even starting there gives you room to forgive another. If you can't forgive yourself, then you haven't flexed the muscle. You don't have the strength to forgive another, especially if it's a character trait that you carry as well. So, having said all about what forgiveness is not, I say forgiveness is it's a mercy that you're granting another or a situation. It's a mercy, and what comes inside of that gift of mercy that you have received and are giving to others is peace, is a level of understanding, is the room to hear and be heard. Um, I don't know if I talked about this before, but oftentimes I talk about how we all understand that, you know, everybody needs to eat, everybody needs to sleep, everybody needs roof over their head, clothes on their back, that sort of thing. But one of the things that's missing that I see frequently is the um, the realization of being heard, having been heard. And again, if either party is walking in unforgiveness or unforgiveness of this of oneself, it's hard to hear and it's hard to be heard. So I think it's a mercy that grants peace and the ability to hear and the ability to be heard.
Okay. I would say forgiveness for me is, I like that, saying it's a mercy that you grant someone. I'd never thought of it that way. Um, and but an additional part of it for me is forgiving, forgiving someone else or myself in order for myself to be whole and complete. So by not forgiving, I harm myself, or I keep myself, I shouldn't even say harm, I keep myself from being the full and whole person that I want to be and that God sent me here to be. So there's a self-interest in forgiving someone else because it sets me free.
100%, yes.
And it doesn't mean that, and also it doesn't mean, you, like you said, doesn't mean what they did is okay. It's not condoning. It's not accepting. It's not taking responsibility for. It's just letting them off the hook of the anger, resentment, judgment, or yourself. And I would say when people don't forgive themselves, that's that's where shame shows up. When you can't
Right.
forgive yourself, you're living in shame.
Right.
So, were you going to say
So,
something?
well, I was just going to say, so what do you see as access to forgiveness? Um,
What do I see as access?
access to forgiveness, because one of the things, you know, we started chatting about before we went live was, um, you know, um, how forgiveness can be brought about and the difference that it makes and what it means when you have actually forgiven someone.
So that's a multifaceted question, I guess.
Ooh, yeah. Yes.
Well, on one hand, it's as simple as a choice. It's really just as simple as a choice.
Yeah.
And choosing to let go of being right about the wrong that was committed to you or the wrong that you did yourself, you know, being right. And in our world, I think we get a lot of feedback, especially from people who love us. Yeah, you should be mad. Yeah, that should never have happened to you. And it feeds that feeling of righteousness or the hurt and betrayal. People kind of like to be victimy. I've been guilty of that. You know, in our relationship, everybody should know I was the one who did the good stuff. He was the one who did the bad stuff. And then that makes me feel really good about myself. And I can get a lot of validation for that. But it keeps me in a victim place, and it keeps me in, it stops me from moving up when we talk about energy vibration and where I want to go and who I want to be. And it stays in my body. And so all it is really going, you know what? I'm not going to hold on to that story anymore. And I'm going to look from a bigger picture, like the big picture of what it is to be a human being and where we get to go. Each step on our road with each thing that happens gets us somewhere. So where did I get to go on this journey?
Right. Right.
How about for you?
One of the things that I found, um, yeah, one of the things I want to point out is my personality type is the type that if anything goes wrong, it was my responsibility. Like I'm responsible for that happening. I'm the reason that it went bad. And then to feel better about myself, then I start saying, but what about this? And then what about that?
Like
Having
just
said that,
justify it.
right. But having said that, one of the things I found for me and myself, and I know, I also will also say, um, so I teach photography. And one of my famous sayings is, "There's more than one way to take a picture," and as a fact, that's true for most things in life. And just like with forgiveness, there's more than one way to access forgiveness. And the way that has worked for me was rather than try to forgive the big thing immediately, like jump into that and work on forgiving, this grand offense, is to go through my day looking for other times when I've been offended and forgive that. I can't believe that guy just cut me off. He didn't even let me in when I was trying to pull onto the highway here. And then
Mm.
just, you know what? I'm never going to see him again. Why am I getting him so upset? I forgive him. Who knows what's going on in his life? And I try to emphasize, you know what I mean? Try to be in his head and
Empathize.
say, yeah, who knows? Maybe his wife's in labor and he's trying to rush to the hospital or whatever. And just try to be that, what, he's got a real world happening too. Let me forgive him for cutting me off. And the more I flex that muscle, the stronger I get at forgiving. And then one day I realized, you know what? I haven't thought about that big thing, that grand offense that was done to me. You know what? I can say I forgive that too. And I think that's what's given me access to, uh, um, being able to forgive what someone may call the big deal, the
Yes.
big thing. And and again, by no means am I saying my way is the way, but I love how that has transformed my heart when I've known there are areas in my heart that were hard and cold.
Yeah, that's a great practice, actually. Thank you for pointing that out because when you can do the little things, when when you're not willing to do anything, then it's almost impossible to do something big, especially when the other person shouldn't have done that.
Right,
Sometimes, like the guy cutting you off, who knows why, right? But when somebody does something that they shouldn't have done that, it wasn't right.
right,
And if you don't have any muscle, then it's going to be really hard to go after that one. So that's a great practice of doing it a little bit at a time.
right. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, so, and also what I've done to give me access is just went out of my head.
Oh,
You go, you keep going, and I'll remember what it was. When you were saying something, I was like, oh, and this is what I do, and then it just went out of my head.
yeah, it's okay. So no, uh, you know, so inside of our marriage, I'll freely admit you had the grand things to forgive me of. So I know it sounds a little pompous for me to say, well, here's how you forgive someone. And that's probably what gave me a little angst inside of this conversation. And um, I, I, I want everyone to know that I realized that I was the one that also needed forgiveness. Therefore, I practice forgiving. And one of the things I do, I forget where I read this, um, but I memorized it years ago. And what I'll say is, one of the greatest statements you can say is "I am," right? So I'll often say, "Love is a verb." If you love someone, you can see it. Well, so is forgiveness. And I will say, "I am forgiveness." Like I am forgiveness, and I'm forgiveness acting here. Inside of that, I'm casting out all doubt and fear, setting men forever free on wings of cosmic victory. I am calling in full power for forgiveness every hour. And to all life in every place, I flood forth forgiving grace. And just memorizing that, again, I wish I knew the book that I read that in, but it was, probably 20 years ago. But memorizing that and then the ability to call it up also gave me access to being forgiven. What does forgiveness look like inside of this situation? Oh, this is what it looks like, and I am forgiveness. If you were to look at me, you would see this is what forgiveness looks like, and uh, that's kind of how you can take it on too. Well, what does it look like? And again, it doesn't condone what happened. It doesn't mean, oh, it was okay. What it means is I I am taking responsibility for myself and my emotional and spiritual health, and that means I am being forgiveness. I am forgiveness.
Yeah, I love that. I am is such a powerful phrase. I remember when you were memorizing that. I remember you sitting down and
Oh, do
memorizing.
you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You used to recite it to me when you were working on it.
yeah.
So, and I remembered what I wanted to say before.
Good, good.
Um, the access that I've been practicing is noticing how I'm feeling. So if I'm having thoughts, so can I just share a little bit about our situation?
100%.
Okay. So Mike, for many, many years, has been in another relationship, and I've known about it for many, many years, and was not able to forgive him for many, many years. And so what I notice is when I pay attention to how I'm feeling, then I can start to say, am I forgiving or am I blaming right now? Oh, am I back into the he shouldn't have, what's going, or am I stepping into who I want to be? And who I want to be is forgiveness. And really, like I said, it's a self interest. I want to be forgiveness because I want a great life. I want a great life. I want a great partnership. I don't want to be sitting over here going, what happened to me? How come he's over there? That's what happened. So the only way for me to do that is to forgive, right? So what I practice is, how am I feeling right now? Because your emotions are a wonderful gauge as to where you're really at. So if I'm feeling frustrated, annoyed, exhausted, angry would be the obvious one, but sometimes it's not even anger that shows up. Sometimes it's a lot of those other lower level emotions. And then I have to stop and look and say, what am I telling myself right now? What am I saying to myself about life, about Mike, about me, about our life? Oh, I think I was just going down that, you know, road. And is this who I want to be? No, it's not. And that takes just as much practice on a daily basis. Certainly for me, it was almost every 5 minutes at a time. There was a time when every 5 minutes I had to pull that in. And now, it's much, much rarer. And I think that that's the place when you can see that you can give up the story about it, give up the story, for me, the story of victimhood. I was doing everything I could and he was off with somebody else. That story, because that's not the truth. There's no, you know what I mean? That's one way to look at it, but that's not the truth. So when I can give up that story, now I can go, okay, let me change how I'm feeling and how I'm looking at it. So that's one of the things I do to access it.
Right. And that's awesome. That's powerful. And I think another thing that's worth mentioning is you want to access forgiveness for an offense, even if the other person is not asking for forgiveness. You don't have to wait for the other person to ask for forgiveness. Um, while that does, um, yeah, I would say, kind of greases the wheels, you in an effort to be more forgiving and have this next level of health, not just uh, spiritually, emotionally, but also physically, you have to access the forgiveness, you know, itself. And if you have the personality that I was just speaking about that I have, and you're the one blaming yourself, you're the one saying that you're at fault. You also have to forgive yourself And that may mean that your lower self goes to your higher self and asks for forgiveness. Your higher self always knows better. So, I talked last time about Ho'oponopono, maybe doing that sort of practice for yourself. So again, so that it gives you access to then forgive another. Say to yourself, um, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you, and thank you. And that's one of the places I had to start, because I totally believed that I had some sort of a curse that I, had to fulfill in my life. I have to curse my life, and these are one of the ways that these curses are showing up. And so my higher self said, "Well, hold on, wait a minute." And again, I had to go and say, "Okay, I can shift things, but it's got to start with my higher self. So let me start, let me reconcile that relationship." And I did. And then I further went to my other people in life, like Linda, and our son, for that matter, because again, uh, you can't make another feel a particular way, or you can't make another love you. You can't make another be some other way. It's easier to move a mountain than to change a person. It's easier to change a mountain than to change a person, except for yourself. And so, what I would say is, forgiveness of another, even if it's yourself, is also a wonderful way to shift yourself and you can hear the call of being a better person. Um, I, uh, who now I can't remember who said all these quotes, so I don't want people to think I came up with these quotes. There's another great quote, and I want to say, um, oh, what's his name? He wrote Conversations with God, but one of the things he said was, "It's not a question of who does God speak to; it's a question of who listens." So God's
Walsh.
speaking to us
His last
all.
name is Walsh.
Yes, Neil
Neil,
David Walsh. That's
Neil
it.
David Walsh.
Right. So that I thought that was a very profound statement, because God, I believe God's speaking to all of us all the time. And when we get caught up in the anger and frustration and in the spirit of unforgiveness, we stop hearing his voice,
Mm.
or whatever means he's using to communicate to us. We stop hearing it. And that's also very sad. And it's also motivation to live a life of forgiveness, where, again, you can hear when God's speaking to you. And then you'll find that, yes, um, your life's lining up. I'm sorry, there's people walking through the park. I thought they were talking to me. Then you'll find that your life starts lining up in other areas too. And I think what you're talking about, Linda, is your physical health. It starts lining up.
Well, yeah, health and anything else. You're right. Your whole life starts lining up, and the other person may never ask for forgiveness. They
Right.
may not be at a place in their own evolution where they can either put aside their pride and ask, or they're still whatever it is.
Or don't even feel like they did anything wrong.
Right. So the forgiveness comes regardless of what's going on with them. It comes
Right.
from within you,
Yes.
for you, not necessarily for them.
Right.
And when you were speaking of your higher self and our smaller human self, I believe that the only way to truly heal, like to really heal health conditions and to really heal, a life where you're struggling, whether it's with money or relationships, is to get yourself back to love. Like, love is the thing that is going to make all of it work, because that's the energy that we come here with and that moves through us. And we block that energy when we don't forgive, when we hang on to things. And then how is that going to show up in one person's life or another is different, but it's blocking ourselves from that energy of love.
Right.
And then even getting to the point, we were talking about this a little bit before we came on, and we'll probably maybe wrap it up with this thought, but even getting to the point where not only do you forgive, but you're grateful for every experience that you've gone through. You're actually grateful for it because it's gotten you to this place.
Right. And talk a little bit about how that looks, like being grateful for.
Well, saying, so, okay, so let's take our scenario.
Which situation of ours?
Yeah. Let's stick with you having an affair and another child with someone else. Let's go with that one.
Okay.
Well, since you asked. So Mike has a 3-year-old, and getting to the place where I'm actually grateful for that allows me to step into being a woman who works with people to help them heal. If I couldn't fully forgive every step and be grateful, then that would still be in my space, which would stop me from being the person I want to be in my business, for my clients, like the woman that I know myself to be. So so I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful because I had to learn myself bigger and deeper than I ever knew myself. And I had lots of opportunities to learn myself bigger and deeper with Charlotte. We'll maybe do a thing on loss another time, but this was one thing that I had to really know myself bigger and deeper. And so for a long time, when I wasn't forgiving, who I was for myself was, oh, I'm the older, fatter woman. Of course he didn't pick me. He picked somebody younger and whatever. But now, and if I didn't fully forgive you so that we can be here having this conversation publicly, right? And be okay about it. If there was still a piece of that, I couldn't show up now the way that I want to be. So, but now I'm like, oh no, that's not at all what it was. I forgive him. It all doesn't matter. This actually was a gift for me to now step into what my life is. So that's what I mean by the gratitude. Did I express that well?
Well, yeah, and I was asking more for your audience than for me. And here's why I'm saying that, because just so that you folks know, the evidence of what Linda just said shows up time and time again. Can I tell you, Linda is so wonderful to my 3-year-old son. Now, you want to understand that I had this child outside of our marriage. We were still married, and I had this child outside of our marriage, inside of an affair that I had had for years. So, what she's saying is so profoundly evident when you see them together. My son loves Linda. He talks about her all the time. He'll say, oh, if he gets something new, he gets a new toy. Oh, I'm going to show this to Linda. And oftentimes it's Corey too. That's Linda and our son, who's his half brother. But he adores Linda, and that's because of who she's been for him. And I will make this very clear too. By no means has Linda ever even indicated that what I did was okay. It was not okay. So
totally wasn't.
I'm saying you can see the evidence of her forgiveness and still see that, listen, it wasn't okay, but, and it doesn't even occur like something earlier she said in her self-interest. I'm glad she chose that word, because I would even say selfish. To me, there's nothing wrong with being selfish, provided you're going to be better afterwards. And that's what self-interest means to me. And so she took on herself to be a better person, to the level that not even my 3-year-old son that was conceived outside of the marriage has any indication that there's any unforgiveness present when we're in the same room. I'll really quick, I know I don't want to hold you up, but I'll tell this story of Corey, Linda, and my 3-year-old son's name is Miles. Corey, Linda, and Miles and I were on Corey's school campus. and he has a hearing. My 3-year-old has a hearing sensitivity. Loud noises just they tend to frighten him. And while we were on campus, the bell went off in one of the steeples, and Miles got frightened and ran to Linda's arms. I'm right there. And he ran to Linda's arms. So that just shows you who Linda is for him, and the capacity that Linda has for forgiveness and how it shows up. It's no doubt in my mind that Linda is special and she's wonderful, and she's made it that way by choices she's made, even inside of very, very hard circumstances. Uh-oh. I'm not going to get hit. I just want to make sure I'm not going to get hit. So yeah, so what she's saying, she can testify having experience. She's not just telling you, well, the theory is. No, she practices what she preaches.
Well, thank you. I forgot about that time, but now that you say,
Yeah.
I remember. But
Hi, how are you? Good.
I wouldn't be doing this if we hadn't gone through that. I'd be, I don't know, a personal trainer counting push-ups for people, which is what I did for 30 years and still do. I still have some clients that I've had for 20 years. But, I'd be doing that and that would be fine. But now, because I've lived it and I've gone through it and I've decided, where do I want to live? Do I want to live in victimhood and anger, or do I want to live in forgiveness? Okay, I want to live in forgiveness. Oh, what has that got me? Oh, my body doesn't hurt anymore. Oh, I can actually have conversations with Mike. We did not, there was a time we didn't talk like this. There was a time we didn't talk, right? Let alone like this. Like there was no talking going on. And you're my son's father. And we went through such a traumatic thing with Charlotte and lost a child together. I don't ever want to lose the one other person in the world that shared that experience with me. I don't ever want to lose that. So am I going to stay mad and righteous, or am I going to give it up so that I get to have that partnership forever? And I want that partnership forever. So again, it's back to the self-interest, but that's what I mean by gratitude. Like, oh, I get to be here because of that. I'd be somewhere else if we hadn't had that. That's all.
Yes.
Well, thank you. When I posted this, or I sent an email out or whatever, I was like, okay, last time I was vulnerable, this time Mike's going to be vulnerable. So I want to thank you for your vulnerability in sharing, our journey. And maybe we'll do it again and talk about loss. I feel like we've had some big things, and I feel like the reason we've had them is to make a difference for others. So I just, if we can, we will. So maybe we'll do that another time.
Yeah, and like I said, like I said in the first live, I am willing to participate at any level you'd like for me to participate. I totally believe you're making a difference. So whatever the community says, if they says, oh, this guy's an asshole, don't have him on anymore, that's fine. I have thick skin. Or if they say, you know what, I'd really love to get someone else's perspective, and I'm interested in what he has to say, I'm happy to participate there too. Whatever I can provide, and I want it to be powerful, what I can provide powerfully for your audience, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you. I mean, the tools that we have both used to be able to get to this place, forgiveness is one thing, but we have used a ton of tools, right? To navigate through all of the things that we have navigated through. Right. And those tools don't just show up. You're not getting taught those tools in 6th grade.
Right.
Like we've actively gone out and sought and spent a lot of time, energy, and money in learning what we needed to learn to navigate what we needed to navigate. And that's, what I'm trying to bring to my tribe. So, okay, Mike. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Linda. Yeah. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thanks. Give Miles a kiss goodnight.
I sure will.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye now. Bye, folks.
Bye.